Hey guys, it's Molly Stark and I'm with the Education Department at Panhandle-Plains Historical Museum, and today I bring to you some skulls and bones of animals that we can find within the Texas Panhandle and other places among the Panhandle stretch in the United States. So an interesting thing from humans to animals is that we all kind of have the same kind of teeth. In humans, we have all three kinds. We have our incisors, which are these guys here, which are used for tearing and cutting and stuff like that. And we have our canines, which are the big pointy teeth that we use for, again, tearing. And the canines are mostly used for meat. And then in the very back, if you move your tongue around and feel those back teeth, those are your molars, and you use those to grind food down. So within the animals that we have in the Texas Panhandle, they have the same kind of teeth. And this is the skull of a coyote. And for those of you who don't know, this is what a coyote looks like. He is a carnivore, which means he eats meat. He usually eats rabbits, mice, and other rodents that we can find within the Texas Panhandle. And you can see here, see those big, big teeth? Those are his canines, and you have those same kind of teeth within your mouth as well. And in the back, here and here, you will see the molars. And the teeth are a massive way of how we know what an animal eats and how they live their life. Here, we have trash bandits, aka raccoons. And these guys eat anything, absolutely anything. They're called omnivores, they eat anything. From insects, frogs, mice, fish, and also nuts, fruits, and vegetables. So because they can eat anything, their teeth look a lot like ours. Up here, they have their incisors, and then the canines, and in the very back, the molars. So we know he's an omnivore like us. And here, we have a possum. He is also an omnivore, which means he's going to have all three kinds of teeth as well. And you can find him in a lot of backyards around the Texas Panhandle and a lot of places like this. Opossums have little pouches like kangaroos do for their babies. And here you can see he has incisors. His are kind of broken off a little bit. He bit into a bad nut or something. And canines and molars. And we have a jackrabbit here as well. This is a jackrabbit. You can tell a jackrabbit is a jackrabbit mostly by the extension of their ears. They have super long ears that stick up, and they help them hear if coyotes or other predators are coming along. And these guys like to hide in tall grasses where their food is. So they are herbivores. They eat crops, grasses, sagebrush, all kinds of grasses and plants. And here, you can see that they don't really have a lot of teeth right here. And that's a massive way to tell herbivores most of the time, is they have this gap. They have teeth here for defense and for grabbing and pulling at food. And in the back, you can see that they have the mass amount of molars for eating the herbs and things like that. An interesting thing about most animals with these really, really long incisors here is the fact that these incisors will grow throughout their entire life. So rabbits, prairie dogs, things like that will always have to keep grinding their teeth down up here because they're growing for their entirety of their life. And a mass animal we have in this area are the prairie dogs. They like to stay in crops and around horses, cattle, things like that. And these guys will dig burrows for their homes. And they have the same extended incisors that will grow throughout their entire life, and the mass molars in the back. And then we'll continue on with our herbivores and go to the white-tailed deer. So a question that you might have is, why does the deer not have its horns right here, its antlers? And it's because its antlers are not actually bone. They fall off every year, and they are just made of kind of the same stuff what your ears are made of. They fall off every year, and they're just for style and for dominance displays and things like that. So in the deer, you will see that they have the same gap right along here. Incisors for ripping at the grass and stuff from the ground, and the molars. And so we can know that by the molars, the incisors, that this guy is an herbivore. He eats grasses and lives his life mainly on the plains, eating trees, shrubs, stuff like that. And here is a picture of a white-tailed deer for everyone at home. And then we come to the pronghorn antelope. He is also an herbivore, and he eats a lot of grasses and stuff like that. And his horns come off. They shed every year, but you can tell that this is still made of bone. So he has a different way of growing his horns every year. So these come off. They're called sheaths. You can see the bone here, and same incisors, the gap, and the big old molars in the very back. An interesting thing about the pronghorn antelope is he has extremely defined eye sockets, which is where his eyes go. And this makes it to where he can only see half of his body at one point in time. Horses are like that, and even the deer has the same really defined eye socket. So all of these animals, anything that has a skull, has a backbone. And here is one of the most impressive backbones of the animal kingdom. This is a poisonous snake skeleton, and see, he has a skull, much like all the other animals here, and he has massive fangs that are like canines. An interesting thing about the poisonous snake is each vertebrae has a pair of ribs to it. And this is how the snake can move so well, how they slither along, is each of these ribs moves independently of one another, which means each rib segment moves on its own. And so each of these animals here have a backbone, much like the snake. Not with as many ribs, of course, but they all have this same backbone, which is a major indicate of them having a skull as well. And lastly, we have a specialized skull of an eagle. And you can tell that an eagle doesn't have teeth like the snake or any of these other guys. So all of their feeding, everything they eat, has to be able to come from the beak. And so an eagle eats a lot of meat and a lot of grasses, nuts, stuff like that as well. So their beak has to be able to eat everything. They're omnivores like us. So an eagle's beak is pointed so he can get into the meat, but it's also flat along here for crushing and pulling and things like that. So I hope you guys learned something about skulls and the animals that we have in the Panhandle-Plains area today. Thanks for listening.